Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to entirely demystify the neurological mechanics of habit formation, and we'll be giving you a highly practical, science-backed framework to completely master your daily routines. Whether you're trying to build a new morning routine, finally read more books, or honestly, just stop hitting the snooze button every single day, it really all comes down to the underlying systems your brain uses to navigate the world. So, let's get right into it and unpack the definitive science of exactly how habits work.
Because the human brain absolutely loves predictable patterns, we're going to follow a super clear roadmap today. We'll start with the famous puzzle box experiment, explore why brains build habits, unpack the four-step habit loop, look at the problem versus solution phases, and then finally, we'll outline the four laws of change to help you build good habits and break the bad ones.
All right, Section 1, the puzzle box experiment and learning new behaviors. Let's dive right into how the foundation of habit formation was actually discovered over a century ago. So, way back in 1898, a psychologist named Edward Thorndike asked this exact question. He really wanted to understand the underlying rules that guide our behavior. So he ran an experiment where he placed cats inside these specially designed puzzle boxes. Now, as you probably know, cats aren't exactly famous for their cooperative nature, right? To escape and reach a bowl of food placed just outside, the cat had to perform a simple act, like pressing a lever or stepping on a specific platform. At first, the cats just kind of moved around at random, right? Scratching and pawing at the corners. But eventually, they'd accidentally press that magical lever, the door would pop open, and boom, they'd get their food. Now, check out the dramatic shift in this data. Thorndike literally tracked their escape times across multiple trials. During those first 3 trials, it took the cats an average of about a minute and a half to get out. Cat 12, for example, took a full 160 seconds the very first time. But through trial, error, and most importantly, reward, the cats learned to cut straight to the solution. By the end of the whole experiment, that escape time plummeted to an automatic, lightning-fast 6.3 seconds. So Thorndike deduced a really simple but profound rule from this. Behaviors that are followed by satisfying consequences tend to be repeated. Moving right along to Section 2, why brains build habits and reducing cognitive load. That famous experiment perfectly sets up our own human behavior. Why does your brain even bother building these automatic routines in the first place? Well, when you encounter a totally new situation, your brain is highly active. It's processing a massive amount of information just to decide what to do. But analyzing every single detail, that is exhausting. So, as this quote brilliantly illustrates, your brain's conscious mind is basically a bottleneck. It can really only focus on one problem at a time. To handle this, it preserves conscious attention for the essential, high-level tasks by pawning off recurring problems to the non-conscious mind. People often fear that habits are going to make their life dull or restrict their freedom, but it's actually the exact opposite. Habits don't restrict freedom, they literally create it. If your fundamental habits, like managing your health or your finances, aren't handled automatically, you are constantly going to be bogged down by basic decisions. Habits automate that daily problem solving, so you actually have the mental space and energy for true creativity. Okay, Section 3, the 4-step habit loop, and the mechanics of routines. Let's zoom in a bit and see how this builds into the specific mechanics of your daily life. The source material reveals that the process of building a habit can be divided into a very rigid 4-step backbone. Every single habit you have, from tying your shoes in the morning to how you react to a stressful email at work, runs through this exact same pattern in the exact same order. So, here's the anatomy of a habit. First up, there's the cue. This is basically a piece of information that predicts a reward and triggers your brain to initiate a behavior. That cue naturally leads to a craving, which is your motivational force. And here's a key distinction. You don't actually crave the habit itself, you crave the change in your internal state that it brings. Then comes the response, which is the actual habit you perform, whether that's a thought or a physical action. And finally, the response delivers the reward. Rewards do 2 major things for us. They satisfy our craving for relief or pleasure, and they actively teach our brain which actions are actually worth remembering for the future. Now, it's absolutely crucial to understand that this isn't just a linear, one-and-done path. It forms an endless, split-second feedback loop. Cue, craving, response, reward. Your brain is continually scanning your environment, predicting what's going to happen next, trying out responses, and learning from the results. This neurological loop is running and active during every single moment you are alive, literally even right now as you're watching this explainer. Let's shift gears to Section 4, problem phase versus solution phase, and slicing the habit loop.
To really make this actionable and figure out how to manipulate our own habits, we can take this four-step loop and just slice it directly down the middle. On the left side, we have the problem phase, which is made up of the cue and the craving. This is that moment when you realize that something needs to change. You notice something good you want, or maybe you experience a pain you want to relieve. Then on the right side, we have the solution phase, made up of the response and the reward. This is when you actually take action and achieve the change you desire. Ultimately, all behavior is driven by the desire to solve a problem.
Let's ground this in reality with a couple everyday examples. Imagine your phone buzzes with a new text message. Boom, that's the cue. The craving is wanting to know what the message says. That right there is your problem phase. So you move into the solution phase. The response is grabbing your phone and reading it, and the reward is satisfying your curiosity. Simple, right? But consider a more stressful example. You're trying to answer a massive mountain of overwhelming work emails. That's your cue. You feel stressed out and just want a momentary sense of control. That's your craving. Your response? You absentmindedly start biting your nails. The reward? A temporary reduction in physical stress. Before you even know it, nail biting becomes strongly associated with answering emails. We cycle through these phases in a fraction of a second, entirely on autopilot.
All right, Section 5, the 4 laws of change and how to design good habits. If every habit follows these exact 4 steps, how can we use this science to intentionally design good habits?
The author brilliantly refers to this framework as the 4 laws of behavior change. I want you to think of each law as a lever that influences your behavior. When the levers are pulled into the right positions, creating a good habit feels virtually effortless. To build a good habit, you just attach a law to each step of the loop. For the cue, the first law is make it obvious. For the craving, the second law is make it attractive. For the response, the third law is make it easy. And for the reward, the fourth law is make it satisfying. It's like a giant puzzle, and if a behavior isn't sufficient in any of these 4 stages, it just won't become a habit. If you eliminate the cue, your habit never starts. Make it difficult and you won't do it. Make the reward unsatisfying and you definitely won't repeat it.
Finally, Section 6, how to break bad habits by inverting the 4 laws. We know how to build them now, but what about dismantling the destructive ones? What if your recurring problem is eating way too many donuts at the office, or doom scrolling on social media when you hit a wall at work? Well, to break a bad habit, we simply take those exact same 4 laws and we completely invert them. We start over in the problem phase. The inversion of the first law for the cue is make it invisible. Stop walking past the donut shop. Remove those triggers right out of your environment. The inversion of the second law for the craving is make it unattractive. You have to reframe your mindset to highlight the negatives of the bad habit, so you literally no longer desire that specific state change. Then, we finish the inversion over in the solution phase. The inversion of the third law for the response is make it difficult. You have to actively increase the friction. If you want to stop doom scrolling, delete the apps from your phone entirely or use a website blocker. Make it hard to do. Finally, the inversion of the fourth law for the reward is make it unsatisfying. Ensure that if you do slip up, the ultimate consequence brings you absolutely zero pleasure, maybe by teaming up with a strict accountability partner. When your levers are set in these inverted positions, maintaining a bad habit actually becomes nearly impossible.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this highly relatable, fairly provocative question drawn directly from the text. Why don't I do what I say I'm going to do? Why don't I lose the weight, or stop smoking, or start that side business? The next time you find yourself frustrated in asking this, just remember, your brain isn't broken. It's literally just following a system. And the answer to that question, and the ultimate solution to changing your behavior, is waiting for you right there within those 4 laws. Master the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward, and you can absolutely master your life. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the science of habits.